Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Local Influencers Podcast. I'm your host, Abel, and on today's podcast, I have Stephen from People of Corpus. Stephen, thank you very much for being here today. So I'm excited to have Stephen on. For those of you who don't know, Stephen runs an Instagram account we're going to kind of talk about and get into. It's literally, the handle is People of Corpus. And so I like to just start off with a very obvious question. People of Corpus, how did you come up with that and why? What made you come up with this idea?
Well, I hope that people aren't hoping for a long and elaborate explanation because it is quite on the nose and very simple. I'm from Corpus. I live in Corpus, and I wanted to take portraits of people here. So hence, these are the people that we're looking at, People of Corpus.
Yeah, and I do like, it's not just like photos or anything. It is, I mean, it's mainly their photos, but you also include a part of their life journey or part of their story. Like you say on their Instagram, it's like their lives, their story. So and then every caption is kind of like one that really stuck out to me was the one about Samantha from El Loco, and that was deep, and I got to know her a little bit more just by a caption of a photograph, right? And so this picture can say 1,000 words, right? Why did you want to pair like the story part with the photographs? Like, what made you interested in not just being like another photography account?
Okay. Yeah. Well, it began it began as like a method for me to take portraits of random people that I met on the street, because I wanted to take more portraits. I wanted to do a portrait, essentially a portrait project where I just took random portraits of people. And I didn't want to seem like I didn't want to put people off, say, hey, yo, let me take your photo. And they're like, well, why? People get odd and get anxious when you do that. So I was like, well, let's start this project. Let's start this thing. I'm going to call it, People of Corpus. And I'm going to ask you a question that was very simply in the beginning. What do you like about Corpus? And on our Facebook page, you can see they're still up. Like if you dig deep enough, you can find some of the original images. And the content, or rather I'll say the caption, that portion tended to take a turn towards a more disparaging view of Corpus, like the water, or there not being a lot of things to do. Mind you, this was I don't know. Honestly, off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly when I began it, but I want to say around 2016. So the narrative was kind of bleak and a little bit of a bummer. And so I wanted to change that, right? And I didn't want it to be specifically about Corpus per se anymore. My own life experience kind of molded it into asking the questions that we ask today, right? I went through I started the project while I was like in the middle of a substance use disorder, using drugs, doing all of this. That got much worse over the years after, and this whole project kind of took went to the back burner and then disappeared. So it made that transition into that, my own life experience was that I have learned so much just from listening to other people's stories, right? Like going through, I was put into jail, and then I was transferred into a long-term treatment facility run by the state. So like jail rehab, essentially, and hanging out with these people that tattoos on their face, like very rough individuals, and seeing individuals like this cry or let's say let down their guard when I could make them smile, but with my goofiness, making these connections with these individuals and then taking that out, going to, Narcotics Anonymous meetings, listening to people tell their stories, and the like literally the therapeutic value of people talking about what they've been through, what they've experienced, is essentially what laid the groundwork for who I am today and what I do now. And so therefore I thought, well, perhaps we could all benefit a little bit from like listening to other people instead of just observing them and judging them and letting that go on, just letting them walk by. Like I wanted to hear, well, what have you been through, right? Because I do feel like we have all kind of experienced maybe not exactly the same things, but our stories are so much more similar than we give credence to, than we want to believe. And so there's that, like I wanted to find the similarities within people, and I wanted to get down to the raw experience and share that with people.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you started somewhere, right? Like kind of very just surface level, and then you were like, okay, you had to tweak it and like dug
Yeah.
deep, and it shows you, like you mentioned, the guys with like tattoos on their faces and stuff, and it shows you that really you can't judge a book by its cover. It's like,
Yeah.
I have mental health issues, and one thing that like I tell people is like the person that you see is the happiest is sometimes the saddest inside,
Yeah.
and people don't realize that.
Yeah.
And so I always, an image that sticks out to me all the time is a photograph of Robin, what's Robin Williams,
Yeah.
that he has this huge smile on his face, and
yeah.
and it's like, man, he had demons inside, and I can relate to that. And so I appreciate, like I said, the captions tell a story, and I actually write, and I always say everyone has a story inside of them. So
absolutely. Yeah.
whether you actually go through and write it or not, you have a story to tell, right? Everyone. And I appreciate that. That is what the People of Corpus has come to be known for, because I've scrolled through many of your photos, especially on Instagram, and I see not only like images that they're not like a posing or fake images. It's like catching people in real life moments, and then you're getting their real life story with that. So I appreciate that. And so how did I understand like how you came up with People of Corpus, but how did you get into photography? Because that to me is a form of art, and not any, we all have iPhones or Android devices. Anybody could snap a picture, but how do you really capture these moments and make them what they are? How did you get into that?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. It was I was probably 14, 15, freshman in high school, and smoking weed, hanging out with my friends, and getting into that, like the early stages of Stephen's substance use disorder story, right? And stoned one night, my mom and dad had bought me a little Sony Cybershot, mom and pop, little point and shoot digital camera. Had a magnificent 5 megapixels or something like this. It was top notch, right? Back in, geez, it was like 2004, 5, right? And I figured out how to change the setting to manual, right? And then increase the shutter speed. Pardon me, decrease the shutter speed, slow it down really slow, set it up on a tripod. And I took this long exposure shot of, and I can remember the shot like to this day, of a tree in my friend's backyard with these really cool lighting. Like the street light was nearby, and it made it look like, it just blew my mind. It was the most like trippy, and it was the word I may have used at that time, right? But like the most interesting thing I'd never seen it. There wasn't like, we didn't have like social media like it is now, where like we could see all these images. Images were seen in basically books, right? So I don't want to date myself that bad, but that's exactly what it was. So that was like something I had never seen before. And I was hooked, right? really, and also like additionally something I wouldn't like to admit, but that like my friends' reactions to the things that I could show them and say, hey, look at this, I was hooked, right? And then that moved into like shooting people, shooting my friends that we were hanging out with. So catching people in candid moments when they don't necessarily look, especially when they don't look like all that great, right? Was a lot of fun, right? So I have this box of film photos from my high school years. That's like I have a couple thousand prints. I would just send them to take them to Walgreens back in the day and get them get them developed. And yeah, that's what got me into it. Right, was being a part of that whole. Just obsessed with the imagery, the looks in people's faces, and the weird shapes that I could, find myself. I don't know. I don't know. It's still difficult to put into words.
Yeah. I remember the days of like some listeners may not remember, but I remember the days of like if you wanted to take a photo, you couldn't use your phone because it was like a brick. You had to use
Yeah.
a digital camera or one of those like Kodak cameras that are like just have like 25 photos in them. You drop it off and
Yeah, disposable.
yeah, the
Yeah, yeah,
disposables. And
yeah,
I have like a huge like just like container photos from like
yeah,
middle school and high school. So let's talk about throwback.
yeah. Real talk, man, for real.
And so, what do you? I know what People of Corpus is now, and if you had to give like or guess maybe, what are your hopes for like People of Corpus? Like, what do you have like future plans for it? Do you want to continue to evolve it, or are you kind of happy where it's at?
It's been it's definitely going to evolve over time, as it's already been like an incredible change with um the process that we go about like capturing the material and then putting it out there. And then additionally, I've been working on for the past couple of weeks like a Google form, and my hope is to like streamline the process a little bit about how to capture the data, I'll say, or the caption, but also I want to hopefully dive a little bit deeper into people's experiences with a whole survey. Um, I don't want to say too much, but getting into more focus on, a little bit deeper into mental health issues and social issues, but in a complete, like, unbiased way. And just I want to dig deeper to be able to find the similarities. And I'm trying to find different ways to do that. So I do expect it to be a continual process. And then long term, though, I can say that I'm hoping to like put it into a book. Like I want to create like a giant tome, like something a little absurdly large, like 12 by 12 and like super thick, or
Like a
something
big,
silly. Go
like
ahead.
a big coffee, like a coffee table book, like a big,
Yeah. Like
like
it,
I
it
like
no, go on.
I have like a bunch of Vogue ones, like not the magazines, but the actual big, huge,
Yeah.
like, and it's just like beautiful photographs of
Yeah.
these people, and obviously they're celebrities, but it'd be nice to have just a big
Yeah.
chunky book, of
Yeah.
people around town, and then combined with parts of their story. I think that'd be like great.
Exactly. Yeah. Something large enough that if there were ever an intruder, you could use it as a weapon. Like
Yeah,
absurdly large, because I don't know. I think there's a level of like, I don't know, my silly personality that needs to play into that whole thing. And it's a little funny to me.
yeah, I like that. I like an over like the top like
Mhm.
just coffee table book. I think is just like they're great to like look at, and they're great to have. So how do you choose the People of Corpus? Like, is it through word of mouth? Is it through referrals? How do you, or do you randomly go up to people and tell them about what you're doing and kind of do that?
So the hope, or at least this is also part of the plan, right? Is that I don't want to really be the one choosing people. I would rather it be, I don't want my like, I don't want it to be just the people that I know. or even people that I think might be interesting or that might look good, and to avoid all of that, I want it to be completely random. And this is part of the evolution of that caption form and all of those things. But as it has been lately, I've put out a few times like, hey, we would like to do some shoots. Email us if you'd like to be a part of it. Kind of just trying to get people who might be interested. And then I did a little bit of a dig into like people who have reacted to some of our material early on and just messaged them. And a few of them, like most of those people, were individuals I had never met before. And that's kind of my goal. Is I would like it to end up being incredibly random, to the point that you go to it one day and you say, oh, hey, I know this person. That's really cool. And then the next week or the next day, whenever you go back and you're like, I don't know this person, but they look super familiar. Is that the guy from the gas station? Or do I see this person at HEB often? It's my HEB. We go to the same HEB. Things like this that are like, they're the people that you may run into, right? Putting faces to names or names to faces, and stories to these individuals that are just moving around, right? Randomly.
Oh, cool. So I love that. Like I said, I love what you're doing. I love the mission. It's like it's very simple yet deep. It's like it's very, like you said, it's on the nose, the name, right? It is what it is, but I encourage people, if they haven't, to go and check out People of Corpus, because just in the photos alone are great, but just getting to know these, quote unquote strangers, because I don't know most of them, but to get to just know part of their lives, and you're like, man, I'm not the only one going through this, or man, I'm not the only one that has been through this. And like you said earlier, we've all had maybe a shared experience in a different way, and so that I encourage people to go and check that out. So with that being said, now is the time to kind of plug your social media. Where can people find you? Where email address, anything you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Okay, sure. So as you said in the beginning, where it's very simple, People of Corpus. That can be found both on Instagram and Facebook, but I would like to direct people mostly to Instagram, as I'm very seldom on Facebook to check anything. It just automatically posts there. And then our email is also very simple, peopleofcorpus@gmail.com. If you want to get in touch with us, I would say send me a direct message on People of Corpus on the Instagram, or send me an email, and we will, if you would like to be a part of it, then by all means, please send us an email, send us a message, and we'll get with you very quickly.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate getting to know a little bit about you and your cause, like, just People of Corpus in general. I really, like I said, I appreciate what you're doing. And I love that's why I started this podcast. I wanted to help individuals here where we live, where we're impacted. I want to help individuals spread the word about themselves, their business, their content, their whatever. So thank you again for being here today.
Yeah, by all means. Thank you for having me. It's been good.
For sure. Well, until next time, folks, that is it for this episode of the Local Influencers Podcast. Wherever you are listening, please, please, please head out into your community and do something good and make a positive change. Have a great day, guys, and we'll talk soon.